Okay, we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from, what time it is, or when you're listening to this recording. You're welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Scholarships. I'll be your host for today. My name is Buchi. I'll do proper introductions as we go along. But before we get straight into what we want to discuss today, first of all, we start off with introductions of the audience. So please drop your name and where you're joining us from in the comment section so we can have a feel of those who are listening and those who are joining the session. Just put that in. I also need to make this announcement again before we continue. So if you are joining us from LinkedIn, we've had a few issues in the past where you're putting your comments on the post that's advertising today's session, not on the post that's actually streaming it. And then we won't be able to get your comments into the studio. So if you are watching the live session from LinkedIn, please click on the live session and put your comments into the comment box for that particular live session so that we can get your comments over on this end. So thank you very much. That's it for that. So keep drop your names and where you're joining us from while we do the proper introductions. So I start with myself. Like I said, I'm Buchi. I'm the host for today. I am not a PhD student, or I've not done a PhD, so I am just here to facilitate the discussion. There are a lot of wonderful faces that you see on the screen that are going to talk to you about today's topic, which I will introduce now, which is PhD realities. That's what we've tagged today's topic as. It's a very interesting one. It's not it's not one of our everyday topics that we usually have where we come to talk about one opportunity or the other. But I think today's discussion is going to center around the journey that people have taken to undertake a PhD, some of the things that they encountered, some of their challenges. So more of what I wish I had known and what I think I could have done better. So we're going to be a little bit retrospective with what we're discussing. So I have a wonderful panel of people on the screen who I'm going to come around to do the introductions. So if you are doing a PhD, thinking about doing a PhD, trying to consider if a PhD is something you can do or not, I think you're welcome to today's session. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the perspective of the relationship between a PhD student and the supervisor. So if you also, maybe you've just finished a PhD, you're going into academia, or you've been in academia for a long time, you're supervising students, and you want to get a little bit of insight on what happens with students and to kind of improve that relationship from your own perspective, you're also welcome to today's discussion. So that's kind of the general area around what we'll be discussing today. Good. So I'll start moving the mic around. We'll start with Ejiro, who is the facilitator of today's program. Ejiro, over to you.
Thank you, Buchi. I'll just make it very quick because you said it all. My name is Ejiro Matilda Ikoko. I'm a PhD student or PhD candidate and also a Commonwealth scholar. Like Buchi said, the idea is to hear stories from our people that walk the journey, the wins, the struggles, what they wish they knew earlier, what can benefit them, what can change. So what like peer-to-peer learning also for prospective PhD students and also how to expose gray areas that which supervisors or people can support much better. So I hope we have a good time today and thank you once more to our panel. Yeah, Richie, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I know you're going to drop off at some point because you're not going to be on the panel. So we're going to have the other three speakers. So I'll move around to those introductions. Ladies first, so Khadija, will start with you.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Dr. Khadija Koroma. I completed my PhD last year in 2024. And so at the moment I work in the charity sector.
Okay, welcome. It's nice to have you here. Next on my screen, we have Emeka.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Chukwuemeka Okoto. Completed my PhD this year in February from the University of Buckingham in the study of modern war.
Okay. Nice to have you here with us as well. Last but not the least, we have Shuaib.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm Dr. Shuaib Arogundade. completed my PhD last year. Yes, last year, and I currently work within the construction industry, where we are trying to utilize AI to help the industry to achieve its net zero target. And I equally lecture at a university here in the UK. Just
Okay.
a disclaimer, all views shared today are mine and mine alone, and they're not related to that of my employer.
Okay. I think you beat me to the disclaimer. But thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I think we were having a little bit of difficulty with your audio, so maybe you can try and see if you can work that out. I could hear you, but there was a little
Okay.
bit of breaking in between.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I think we'll be able to sort that out. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, while people in the audience are still dropping their names, I will dive straight into the discussion because I know we're kind of pressed for time today. But like we always do, we encourage people to always drop questions that they have in the comments as the discussion goes along. Don't leave all your questions till the end because we may not have all that time at the end to take all the questions. So if a question or if you've come with any predetermined question that you want to ask, feel free to drop it as early as you can so that we can take that and make that form a part of the discussion in case there's a particular area that you want to, get some clarity on. So that's allowed. Good. So, speakers in the panel, you've all done your introductions, and everyone has said they finished their PhD. Some people try to remember how long ago it was, even though it sounded all recent. But I'm sure when you've undertaken that journey, once you finish it, you feel like a big weight has been lifted off, and it was like a very long time ago. But congratulations to you all. So, I think the very first question that I have is, and it's a very reflective one. Yeah. If you could restart your PhD, not do a second one now. If the one you've just finished, if you could go back in time to the start of it, would you keep everything the same, or is there something that you would have changed, or is there something that you wish you knew, and why do you think so? What do you think? If you want to change something, why do you think that's important? Why do you think that's something that you consider significant enough to change if you would go back? I know maybe thinking back to when you started might be a few years ago, but I tried as much as possible to think back and reflect. So in no particular order, I will start with Emeka. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Are you starting with me?
Yes, we're starting with you now.
Oh, okay. I must say you really took me off guard by that. But however, yes, if I were to go back on that PhD, what I would like to keep the same, I think I would love to keep my supervisor. That's number one, because he was a very great guy and supported me throughout the journey. So I think that's a good thing to have, a very supportive supervisor, because it demystifies the entire PhD process for you. When I chat about my supervisor, I tell people that I had a guy who we will sit in supervision meetings and discuss, okay, and all that tension about, oh, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. He would find a way to douse them by just conversations about regular, life activities and events. And at the end of the day, we see ourselves walking along the streets, grabbing street food and eating and catching up. And so I think it was one of the good things I enjoyed doing my PhD. However, one thing I would do differently is that I wish I had a section like this before starting the PhD, so that I would prepare for post-PhD life, because sometimes people get consumed in the entire PhD journey. And I've said this to a lot of people, that the actual PhD starts when it ends. There is the part where you would need to be patient to get the PhD. That is when you've done your own part, you've done the work, and you're now waiting for your panel of reviewers or examiners to come back to you, and you're quite uncertain, even if you are sure of what you've done. But there is always that level of uncertainty. There is that one. There is that part of transitioning after the PhD into something that you really want to do long term. And these are things that people are not informed early on in the PhD journey. Some person just gets carried away by either the stress or the excitement of the PhD, and then they forget to plan a post PhD life. So that's one thing I would do differently. I would start early on. In fact, I will start from day one and start planning my post PhD life, because that is really where the real issues are. You have the PhD, so what next? For some persons, that question is not easy to define. For some persons who already have or who already had things doing and they want to go back to it, fine and good. But if you're in a sector like I am, the competition is very tough. So you need to up your game. You need to start early. You need to start early to design what you want to do post PhD. You need to start early, start reaching out to people. You need to start early, start putting out yourself there. You need to start early, start writing publications and not just focusing on writing dissertation. You need to write all your chapters like you want to publish them. You need to target top tier journal publications, because these are the things that will give you the visibility in your post PhD lifestyle. So these are the things that I would do differently. I will start early and start planning my post PhD lifestyle. And then knowing that the PhD starts when it ends. I don't know if I did justice to that question, but I will listen to other panelists and probably we can glean a thing or two from their own contributions. I
Yeah,
yield
yeah,
the
yeah.
mic.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that's a very, very powerful reflection. It's good to hear that you had a very wonderful relationship with your supervisor. Uh, and it's also good to hear that, so at least so for someone who may be wanting to go into a page or who's currently on the page, to get that insight from you that, planning the next few steps after that is also as important as actually getting the work done. So I think that's a good reflection. Let's go over to Khadija and see what she has to say. So if you can go back in time, what would you keep the same? What would you change and why?
I think, like my fellow panelists have said, I would definitely keep the same my supervisors. So I also had really great supervisors that were very supportive, and they gave me the space to be creative in my PhD work, but also the guidance and support when I needed to be set back on the right path. When I would just, sometimes when you're researching, you enter like a rabbit hole where you see this one thing and now you go research it. It has nothing to do with your thesis, but it's just so excited. So I had supervisors that were like, that's good. You can write an article about that after, but come back to the thesis, come back to what you need to submit in a month's time. So I was really glad for that. One thing I would change would be starting my PhD during a pandemic. I think that was definitely difficult because it was hard to build a PhD community because everyone's isolated, everyone is at home, you're not really talking to people. I think it was a year and a half before I actually met my supervisor in person because, again, everything was online during COVID. So that would be the thing I change.
Okay, okay, thank you. So reflections on the COVID lifestyle back there. And I think a few people will definitely agree with you. I mean, even a few people I've talked to, people that even started undergrad or masters, most of them have that same perspective. Okay, let's come over to Dr. Schwab.
Yes, thank you
Yes,
very much.
I think
Is
I
my
saw you.
sound
Saw you.
better?
Yes, 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 yes. I
Is
can
it
hear you
better?
a lot clearer now. Yeah, yeah. I saw
Okay,
you nodding
thank
when the other people are speaking. So let's hear from
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. That's because we seem to have the same view about our supervisors. And it's quite interesting because I've spoken to quite a few people that they've not had very good experience, with their supervisors. But I think by a stroke of fate or something, the three of us on the panel seems to have very good supervisors, which I think is very critical when you are doing a PhD. The relationship with your supervisor can make or break you and can actually make you finish your PhD or dump it along the way. Uh, and probably discussion is going to go around, relationship as we go along. So, hence, one thing I would keep is my supervisor. because I had supervisors that were they left me to really go wild, if you allow me to say that, in terms of me really directing, my PhD in terms of the way I think it should go, which is quite strange because my PhD was actually an advertised project, and you would have expected that they would have like a box that they will put you in to say no, this is it. However, uh, probably from experience, I don't know, but they felt that me coming to do the PhD, I needed to also learn along the journey, and probably it could be a case of me hitting the goals or the objective they had in mind while putting together the advertised PhD, because they shared that with me when I was starting out. And so I think that is one thing I wouldn't change, the relationship, and how they have sort of guided me along the way, to the extent that my supervisor will even tell me that, Tribe, you need to take a break. you know like take a break from away from work, go sit down in the park, take a walk, go on holiday if you need to. I, I don't think that's something you get every time, so I would definitely not change that. However, what would I change? To be honest, this is really hard for me because I seem to have an all-round positive experience. However, I think one of the things that I might change a little bit is how I present my work to my supervisor, because I think towards the beginning of my third year, there was a slight issue, with one of the supervisory member. And I think that arise because when I share my work, there is no sort of track of, okay, this is what I've shared now, and maybe a month's time or 2 months' time, this is what I've shared now. So probably using like a shared folder, say a Google Doc, for instance, or thereabout, that could really sort of track the timeline. I think that would be something I would change, because the issue that arose, had to do with, oh, I don't think I've seen this before. And I'm like, no, I shared this like a year ago. So I think that's something I would change in terms of how we sort of track the submissions along the line on my work. So that's it from me. And probably to quickly add to what Dr. Chuk said, I think he has really nailed it on the head in terms of publishing sort of early, networking with the people in your field or in the industry early, and if you need to also sort of balance things between industry and academia, especially if you don't know where you want to really focus your post PhD life in, because most people start a PhD and they feel like, I'm going to be in academia. Okay, so if that's the case for you, then you had better go all in and ensure that you are dropping your publications like back to back. It might be difficult, but you need to find a way to do that, probably by partnering with other PhD students, or which you can get within your school or online via LinkedIn or thereabout, because that will then support that process post PhD in breaking into academia. You need to try to go for conferences to be able to build that relationship, with other people, because by the time you start looking for jobs within the academia, you would have met, people that would then be able to pass opportunity along to you. And if you want to go to industry, then you need to begin to, I mean, LinkedIn is our friend these days. You need to begin to network with people in the industry, and you need to actually begin to reach out to them while you're studying your PhD, in terms of probably volunteering or trying to get some placement or trying to get some part-time work or something like that, to be able to begin to build your experience, right? Especially in the UK, because by the time you finish, your PhD is one thing, but experience is what is being valued most. Other clients might have other sort of things that they look at, but in the UK that we are in, that I think I know a bit of, experience is really valued more than even that PhD that you have done, right? It's just very few places that your PhD is going to sort of put you in the front of the pack. Okay, so you need to begin to build those relationships. And if you don't know where you want to go to, industry or academia, then what you need to do is balance both. So, say for instance, if you are going to go to academia, if you're going to publish 5 paper, publish two. If you don't know if you stay in PhD or in academia or industry, and the remaining time that you would have devoted in publishing 3 more, devote that time, to probably getting placement in the industry or volunteering or working part time or something. So that way, it's going to be best of both worlds. And when you finish, you can then, spread your tentacle into both areas, and hopefully one is going to click. Thank you.
Okay.
And just to add a little bit of balance to what Dr. Schweib said, because as much as we agree that it is important to plan for a post PhD lifestyle, you need to also keep in mind that the volume of work that you have to do as a PhD student. In most cases, yes, the PhD itself can actually make very good way for you. What I mean by that is that if you are doing really something groundbreaking, as you should, then you might want to also be strategic in terms of the networks and conferences where you go, you present your ideas and all of that. So what that means is that by the time you're finishing your PhD, you would have already built a network of connections that can get you into something. I mean, it helps you define post PhD along the journey. So it's not just about publishing your work. I encourage young scholars like us. I say don't be in a haste to publish. Publication is very important, but don't be in a haste. Even if you send in a work and it is rejected, don't just hurry because you want publication and then send it to some predatory journals. That's one thing that early career scholars fall prey for. Because you want to publish, you want to have your name out there, you just rush into predatory journal publishers and then they jump on your work, and they won't start addressing you as a doc even before your second year ends. And before you know it, it gets into your head. You want to send more works to them. You're just watering down the value of what you are doing. So, best approach is send your works out to publishers, very quality tier one publishers. If it gets rejected, better for you. If it gets accepted, still very good for you because it shows you're doing something really strong. If it gets rejected, they get to give you very good feedback. I'll probably talk about this more, perhaps in another question about how we can leverage some of these tier one, tier two, or journal publishers to get good reviews, as we get along in the webinar. Thank you.
Oh, I also wanted to add in terms of publishing, just for people to just be careful and check with their universities, because some universities don't allow you to publish anything to do with your thesis before you submit your thesis. So if you're going to publish a chapter from your thesis, make sure your university allows it. You don't want that one article to now disqualify you from finishing when you think you're ready to finish and you have to redo a whole chapter. So yeah, just make sure, check with your university, check with their policies, and that you are allowed to publish your own work before your thesis submission.
Very important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think those were very, very important points. I can see some people already commenting that they're enjoying the conversation. So I think 3 of you echoed the sentiment of having a great relationship with your supervisors is something you're going to keep. So my next question is going to go a little bit into that, and it's about so the question is, how did you and your supervisor manage expectations? Because I think from my conversation with a few people, it's more about, sometimes you don't understand exactly what your supervisor's role is, what exactly your own responsibility is, what is supposed. Some people want the supervisor to take all the responsibility. Some people, maybe the supervisor is taking too little or too much, they feel, but that's because of expectations. So how did you and your supervisor manage expectations? What approaches did you use? What worked well? Was there a kind of iterative process between you two, maybe in the first year, getting to know each other, you tried something, it didn't work? I know Dr. Shabas talked about the way he was sharing his work with the supervisors, that's something he would like to change. So that's probably a lesson learned. But what kind of things actually worked well to help you maintain that solid relationship that you had with your supervisors? How were the expectations managed? What didn't work? What worked? What do you feel, is the kind of thing you learned from that? because relationship management is not just about the PhD. It's something that you take going forward. So there are some skills that you've had before you even started the PhD that worked well, and then you're going to carry those things forward. So we'll start with Khadija now. Let me not go to Mecca so he's not thrown off balance.
So how did I manage my expectations with my supervisor? I think for me, coming into the PhD, so I did my undergraduate, then I went into the professional world, and then I came back to academia. So when I came into my PhD, I was coming from professional experience, and I was used to, from the first meeting, setting expectations. So with my supervisor, we sat down and I was like, okay, so how does this work? And we were able to like decide that she will send the invites once a month for a meeting. I will send like my work a week before, and then I'll send her an agenda of what we're going to discuss in our meeting. So everything was very much from the first meeting. We had the discussion. We both knew what we expected from each other. So yeah, a week before our meeting, I would send her whatever chapters or draft I'd worked on. She would send me feedback the day before our meeting. We'll go over it in the meeting, go over our agenda, and then I'll know what to do for the next month. And she'll send a calendar invite. We just keep going round and round and round. So for me, that worked really well because we both know what was expected of us. We both know how things were working, and we just continue that for the whole 3 years.
Interesting. That sounds like consultancy.
That's a very good one. I think from the get-go, you set all the expectations, set all the cards on the table. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing and how to go about it, and everyone tries to keep to their own part. And I think that works really well. Dr. Schwab, you said that sounds like consultancy. So, from your perspective, how did you manage your expectations with your supervisor? Seems like you had a different approach.
Well, I would have loved to say the way Khadija said it in terms of this is quite a very good workflow. However, for me, I think it was more of me driving the relationship. I basically emailed when I needed to meet. Yes, there is expectation of meeting bi-weekly when I first started, just to be able to ensure that I'm on the right track. But quickly after like 2 or 3 months, I changed it to monthly. So it's just like, well, I know what I'm doing, so let's change it to monthly quickly. But I think also why that was not too difficult for my supervisors to accept was because every piece of my work, like personally, I have expectations on myself, right? And so every piece of my work, I deliver like before they would even ask me for something, right? If that makes sense. And probably they saw that, well, this guy seems to be on top of it. And that's because from the get-go, I wanted to finish my PhD 3 years or less. So that was my own personal goal for myself. So from the get-go, I sort of hit it from beginning. And I think that really worked well in terms of managing the expectation, in terms of the relationship, because they were like, this guy knows what he's doing, right? However, I think that at some point there might you might be a bit overwhelmed is not the word, but you might be a bit confused in the process in terms of what do you need to do next and stuff like that. So when that arises, I think the best bet for you is to open up, and not because I talk to a few PhD students and they're like, well, I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing. You get what I mean? But these guys understand the process. They know it better than you. They can quickly untangle things for you, right? So if you ever get to that point, if you open up quickly, I think it's rather solidifies the relationship rather than portraying you as someone that does not know what you're doing. Okay, so which is what I did basically. So when I get to that point, I just basically open up, and I think that also helped. In terms of what I would have done differently, what I would have changed, I think I mentioned in the first statement to the response in terms of when I send in my work, okay, probably I would have used a tracker, to be able to ensure that there is the record of work sent in, the changes made by them, or the comment made by them, or something, right? Although that is available, even though I used MS Word and it's available via email, when that issue happened, I could just say I uploaded the mail that showed that we had that interaction. So, but again, it depends on you as an individual, whichever route you want to take.
Yeah.
And maybe I should quickly add, there is a there's a an I want to call it an unspoken rule, but it is also written down somewhere in some of the document that you'd have gotten. You as a PhD student, the, the onus is on you to ensure that you drive conversation and you drive the relationship with your supervisor, not the other way around. Supervisor would rather meet you maybe halfway, or if you drive it 70%, the supervisor drives about 30% or something like that, because it is your work. And at the end of the day, you will become, for lack of a better word, better than your supervisor in that area because you are the one like reading articles, doing the research day in, day out. Hence, you have to know that your supervisor does not know much as you are when it gets to a certain point of the journey. The only benefit that the supervisor is going to give you is benefit of insight, you know, based on their own experience that they have supervised a lot of PhDs or what they have done in the past or their relationship with other supervisors and all of that. That's what they will bring into play to be able to then guide you. Right. So if you have this understanding, then I think that be able to ensure that you manage relationship. That's not to say that there are some supervisors that are difficult, that are just difficult. I acknowledge that. Okay. So I think that's it for me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think you had some very important points there. I think the approach of you build confidence with your supervisors at the start. You try to set your own standards for yourself, and then that also reflected on them, and that they were able to give you a little bit of they had confidence in your ability to deliver work, and that kind of drove the relationship forward because you took up that responsibility and you pushed it forward. And as you said, the piece of work belongs to you, so you are the one that is ultimately responsible for it getting done. Your supervisor is there to help you and support you through the process. Because sometimes people sometimes they get it confused because when you're in an undergraduate setting, most of the time most of the responsibility lies on the lecturer who's driving things
Yeah.
forward. But when you come into a PhD, it's a little bit of a change of dynamic. They see you as someone who's responsible enough to take that project up. It's your project. They are just there to piggyback on at the back of it and give you that support and push you forward. So that kind of makes a lot of sense. So we'll come to Emeka now to tell us about his own, the way they manage their own expectations with his supervisor and the things that they did to make it work out. He already told us about them going out to get street food and having nice conversations. We'd like to go a little bit on the
Yes.
back end.
I would say because my supervisor was really an adventurous person. He's traveled quite a lot, so there was no kind of food I didn't get to eat. We did Greek restaurants, we did Turkish restaurants, we did Thailand. In fact, my favorite was Thai food, and we did street food, and I enjoyed all of those evening walks, that we took together. It really helped to demystify the entire process for me.
Yeah.
So I would just try to come in a little bit different from the other two speakers, and I would just say, because I understand we have an audience that is cut across the globe. So aware of that fact, I would say you need to understand the team that you're working with. Understand the structure of your PhD. It's very important. For those in the US, you don't go into thesis writing, just writing from the start. You have some time when you have to do some teaching responsibilities, when you have to also even write your candidacy exams and all of that. So, and by which time you might not have a substantive supervisor assigned to you. You might have like a team you're working with, but you still have, at some point, you might get to teach a course and all of that. So I would say on that, understand the structure of your PhD, understand when you're supposed to have your exams. So your candidacy exams, have a deadline when you're preparing what you're reading at the moment, and just have the structure of, okay, this is what the structure of this PhD looks like. If it's 5 years, if it's 6 years, if it's 7 years, this is what I'm doing in my first year, this is what I'm doing in my second year, this is what I'm doing in my third year. So you plan yourself around all of those activities and then stick to them. Uh, I said to Ejiro when we spoke earlier that the PhD thing, more than is not a one-way knowledge transfer thing, is a two-way knowledge transfer. It is a two-way knowledge transfer because it is your supervisor is learning something new from what you're doing. You are also learning something from doing it. So it's not just for him to say, he's not just guiding you to write something. Otherwise, it will look like he already knows what you're writing or he has been there and all of that. He hasn't done the research you're doing before. Nobody has done that before. You are the number one person doing that. Okay. So he himself is also learning from what you are doing. But like I said to her, I said, you need to untangle from expressing yourself in your PhD to now allowing your supervisor to help you analyze what you're feeling. What I mean is this: the PhD, if you really want to have a smooth ride, you will need to move beyond what you are feeling. It's not an avenue for you to express what you're feeling. Okay? It's an avenue for you to be guided to understand and analyze what you are actually feeling. These are two different things. So I said to her, I said, for instance, if I'm supervising a lady, okay, and I'm going to use a very ordinary example that I used in our conversation, and I'm supervising a lady who is conducting a research on menstruation, okay, I'm a man, I don't menstruate, so I probably don't have any practical knowledge of menstruation. So you as a lady conducting this research, the tendency that you would want to express menstruation to me is very, very high. Okay, but that's not what you're doing. That's not what you are expected to do. You are now supposed to allow your supervisor to guide you through analyzing menstruation. Because there is, yes, you experience it, but there is a pattern to understanding it, which is where your supervisor now comes in, because he is the expert. He is the one who has also done the academic aspect of what you're feeling. So that's why I said it's a two-way approach to knowledge. So that in reading your work, he now gets to learn different things about menstruation, and you yourself, you now also get to understand that there are different sides, there are different things that you feel, but you didn't yet understand it in certain ways. So that's why I said it's a two-way approach to knowledge exchange. So having a work plan is important in this two-way knowledge exchange, like my colleagues have said. In my case, I had to do a lot of reading because every week you have to do your reading. And when you do your reading, you react to most of the papers that you have read in writing before you now start to form your argument on paper. So to do that successfully, you would have to, ahead of time, create your readings, share with your supervisor, who now says, okay, include this reading, remove this one is just not a very solid reading. So you create all of those things, share with your supervisor ahead of time. He will also, sometimes he also finds interesting readings from your own work, which helps him to guide you better. So when you do that, always target a week before your meetings. I would say that you want to send in just a week, okay, so that you give him some time to read. Where I've seen people have issues with supervisors is because you want your supervisor to do this thing. You just want him to agree with you. You just want him to read and confirm what you're saying, and then he is reading, but he doesn't agree with some of the things you've done. And again, you haven't given him sufficient time to read and digest your work. If you send me a work to read now and you're asking me to turn around, say, in 2-3 days, I might not give you a detailed comment on that work. But if I take my time, I can read maybe 2-3 pages today and I'm very critical about it and I can give you very good feedback on that. So if you give your supervisor the length and breadth of time to look into your work, I think you get a better output. in terms of how critical and how solid your work is. So that's one. Then, if there are other things you want to do outside of academia, it's very important that you inform your supervisor ahead of time. Okay. For me, if I found a conference that was interesting, I will send it to him. I will say, sir, can we attend this conference together? You know, if I found a grant that I felt, oh, he would tell me, or if he found something too, he would tell me, apply for this. I know I got a couple of, grants in because of my research. And it was because even the ones he couldn't get and I got it, he was like, oh, you got it? I'm like, yes, I did, sir. And he was like, oh, next year I'm going to try and apply myself. So always just carry him around. Carrying him along saves you a lot of stress. And your supervisor is going to be a part of your life forever. It's going to be a part of your life forever. People cannot call you doctor and then you respond to it reflectively without acknowledging your supervisor because, yeah, he contributed a great deal. So, because it's going to be part of your life forever, you must try not to upset him at any point. This doesn't mean you must always go cap in hand, or you must appear beggarly because he's doing you a favor. No, this simply means that you need to know your limits. Okay, as much as I went out on drinks and food with my supervisor, I never really allowed any of those things to encroach into, and I didn't cross my boundaries. I knew my limits, and once it was time to withdraw, I would say good night, sir, and then I would find my way home so that it doesn't look like you're being invasive on certain issues. So that's one. And again, I'm now speaking to our Black audience. I mean, people from Africa, Nigeria, and other places that are not the United Kingdom, the United States, or Canada. We have a very serious cultural divide that can sometimes spoil things for us. Okay, don't assume that your supervisor, because both of you laugh and all of that, that he's going to attend all your birthday parties or attend all your child dedications. It's not everything that you even want to even invite him. So if there are things like that, it's good you have that kind of relationship. If the person is somebody who understands relationship to that point, why not? But you don't have to be that invasive in your relationships. Just if you can stick to making it professional. I nearly had a problem. As much as I had a very good relationship with my supervisor, there was a time I nearly breached that good relationship. And what did I do? Because of how free we were, I started testing him some information on WhatsApp. And for him, there are certain conversations you cannot have on WhatsApp because he will also need to have a trail. And WhatsApp is not going to be there forever. Sometimes if the person is not backing up information, they could lose a trail and all of that. So there are certain things that I would just, because I felt I had easy access, and then I would just let me just quickly test him on WhatsApp. Sometimes he would reply, but there was a day he gave me a stern response, and I had to understand that, see, don't do too much. So that's what I would say. That's one thing I would leave with us. So don't overuse the relationship. Know when to stop. Know how to keep it professional. Don't assume anything. If you're not clear, just ask question. If you're like they say, if you're in doubt, just ask question. Don't think he will understand and then just do it. Don't send official information on WhatsApp. Okay, don't say, oh, we go for drinks. Is it not? We go clubbing. Yes, you can go clubbing, but you can't even finish going clubbing and he will read your work the next day and tell you that this is complete rubbish. And you're like, but we were just, this is someone that was just laughing with you. And then, so you need to understand that these dynamics are always at play in relationships, and then you learn to keep it professional. So if you do your part very well, I think the highlight of it is that keep it professional. Know the team you're dealing with, understand your own program, and just follow it. Okay, you can be creative about what you do, but always carry your supervisor along. Do not ruin the relationship because it's going to last you a lifetime. Except you know that you are the boss of your own. You don't need him. You have your company. Once you finish the PhD, you're back to your CEO position, and your supervisor But even at that, you still have to try and show him some love, like we say, as a big man you are. So, but then just try to keep the relationship. It will last you a lifetime. And yeah, it's supposed to be mutually beneficial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there were a lot of nuggets in that, so it's difficult for me to summarize everything that you've said. But I'm just being trying to be mindful of time. I know that we're almost there, and I see a few questions have popped in from the audience. So I'm just going to ask one more of my questions, and then we'll try to keep it brief, and then we'll try to move into some of the questions that have come in from the audience and see if we can wrap things up. I know this is the kind of conversation that you want to keep going, and it's very interesting. And I know even this because here enjoying the conversation among themselves as well. So a lot of nodding and smiling while things were being said. So my next question, which I would say is my last question, I'll just put it all together, is about this is a little bit of a more personal one. So at any point, did you think of giving up? Because I think we have that as something that has happened to a few people. Some people just want to leave it and go, they want to drop out, or they want to, they feel like their head's exploding, basically, for lack of a better term. So was that at any point that you felt that pressure? You felt, oh, this is too much. You felt, oh, I might have to let it all go, or, this is killing me, that kind of thing. And, what was the, if, well, not saying you should give us all your personal details, but what was the reason why? Was it things like balancing family? Was it something to do with finances? Was it something to do with the relationships? Maybe other relationship that you've had? Maybe you're not keeping up with your friends and things like that. So there's a lot of things that goes on. Like we've said at the beginning, you do your PhD, then you also plan for life. After PhD, you try to set yourself up to be visible. There's a lot of things that go into that. So just what was your own experience based on that? So we'll start with Dr. Schwein.
Thank you very much. Make it very brief. Well, that never happened to me in that real sense. Okay, in terms of to the extent of leaving my PhD. However, there were times whereby I felt overwhelmed. In terms of like this work is too much. It's going to kill me. Literally, what I do then was I just drop everything. Okay, I drop everything and I binge watch on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. Literally, I would wake up in the morning and that's what I would do till night. Like I would watch movies all through the day, and I could do that for like 3 days straight up. And I noticed that after that, I'm just literally calm and I'm back, and I then just go full head on. So that's what I usually do to just decompress when I feel really overwhelmed. Yeah.
Okay. Good to unplug sometimes from the whole thing going on. It's too busy. You need to come out. Khadija, do you have?
Lot of work. Sorry, and I take a lot of work. A lot of work.
Okay, good. So it's not all screen time. Khadija, do you have a similar, different perspective?
Yeah, so I also didn't get to a point where I felt that I was going to give up. I think for me, from the very beginning, I made sure I put breaks in my PhD timeline / journey. So there'll be weeks where I tell my supervisor I'm away for 2 weeks. And even if I'm not doing anything, because again, COVID, I would just be at home. I would crochet was one of the skills I picked up during my PhD. I think over the 3 years, I crocheted over 200 things because that was the one thing that it was like, I'm stressed at this feedback. So it was like, okay, I need to do something to not punch someone. So that definitely helped me to get through the journey and have a way to stress relieve and have something that I felt that I could control. So like when you make a little hat, you're like, I have control over this one thing. So it's okay. I don't have control over the 5 million things I have to do for my PhD right now. Yeah.
Okay, it's nice to know. It's nice to know you picked up an extra skill as part of your PhD journey. So that's good. Rebecca, how about you?
Yes. Frankly speaking, I think it was 2 years ago, I nearly dropped my PhD. I did. I don't have a history of quitting, but I nearly dropped the PhD because of a lot of factors. One, I was trying to beat more than I can chew. That's one. And just when I was having that resolved, also I had a funding issue. Uh, in the midst of that funding issues, I started applying. Not, I didn't just want to leave the PhD and not do a PhD entirely. I was leaving one PhD to start another one. I think that was my case. There was a point where I wanted to quit the PhD entirely, and then there was another point where I wanted to leave this PhD and do another PhD. So I had these two turning points in my PhD journey. So with the first one, like I said, it was because when I started off and then I got into the field and I saw that there were a lot of things, there was a lot of information for me to unpack. I got overwhelmed. And that's the boil down to the resolution of that situation still came down to me having someone who understood the journey. And so he encouraged me to try and trim things down to something manageable. That was the first lesson I took away. And then I bought some books as well. There were these books I can, if I just turn around, I can see some of them in my shelf. Doing the PhD, I bought a lot of materials on doing the PhD, and I had to just abandon the research to read about PhD itself. Okay. And that was when I first learned that only 11% of people in Canada or Canadians start a PhD and finish it. Only 11%. And it's not because they don't have the acumen to do that, but it's because of the pressure that comes with doing it. So some persons just do here, some people do PhD just as a leisure. It's not just some people do it as a leisure, and so those people are people who have had years of experience in the industry, and now they want to bring their years of experience in the industry into something they can convey as a new knowledge to people. So it's easier for them. You see them older people, they are just they have a conversation with their when you go to meetings and you see them discuss with their supervisors, they are just chatting about, oh, you were on a mission in Sudan, oh, how was it? Those are the kind of things you're hearing, and you're just sitting and you can't even relate to what they are saying. So you have to do it the book way, right? At a point, I said, okay, maybe I should just quit now, go get some field experience, and then come back and use my field experience to complete this PhD. So I was at that point, but because I also was able to trim down my job, what I was doing, cut it to a significant chunk that I could finish within time. Because one thing is to start a PhD, the other thing is to realize that you're running on a funding and that the funding will finish at some point. So you have to finish your research within a specific time. So that really helped me. And then with the funding thing, my PhD was originally awarded me. I think it was just these are part of the things I would have changed earlier on, because the PhD was awarded. They said it was awarded at home fee rate, and so along the line, it was as though I had to pay. So I ran into trouble because how am I a PhD student and then I have to pay? There was no way I could work 20 hours and afford to pay that kind of money and still take care of myself. So that was a major challenge. And at that point, I already contacted the professor at Stanford, and he was quite happy to move on with my work. So I turned in my application with Stanford, interviewed with them, and then I told my supervisor, please. It was while the conversation with the Stanford professor was already ongoing that I told my supervisor, please, can you give me a reference? I want to leave the university. And we're just having the conversation, and he was quite astonished, and he said, no, you can't leave. I said, but I've run into funding problem. I can't help myself at this point. So he said, no, we have to find a way. You have to finish it. You have to finish it. And you are my first PhD supervisee, so I can't let you go. So, so I said to him, I said, okay, so if you can't let me go, then you make funding available for me, because right now I've had it up to here. I have to have something, So coincidentally, there was this fellowship that came up in my university, and that they encouraged me to apply. So, and see if that could cushion the effect of the funding. For straight 6 months, to be very fair, my target was to do my writing within 2 years. But for straight 1 year, I managed to do only a chapter. And after that, for the next 6 months, I didn't do anything because I was so frustrated. And that was the time I had to abandon the job and try to read other books, including reading about PhDs itself, trying to even understand what this PhD thing is. Not that I didn't really understand it before, but I wanted to know the steps. How can you do this and do it very well? So I had to read about the PhD life. I had to read a lot and then just to understand and acquaint myself with some of the challenges. And I saw that what I was facing wasn't different from what other PhD students are also facing. And then I got into an epistem, like a society that, okay, I had similar frustrated PhD students like myself. So we started talking about, oh, this is, so I realized that, oh, my own problem wasn't even as bad as other people. So there are people who started and what they are doing is not what their supervisor wants them to do. So they're having that conflict. Okay. So they have to first resolve that conflict of doing what their supervisor wants them to do. But me, I wasn't having that issue. So we started encouraging each other and got back on it. And as God would have it, I got the fellowship from my university. And so that's now augmented my funding and I was able to push through. The other challenge I had also,
Okay.
which I
Sorry, I'm going to cut
okay,
you. But
okay,
I'm just being
okay.
mindful. I'm just looking at the time now. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, because I
so
know we're almost
that's
at
it.
yeah, almost at 6 o'clock, and I know that so our speakers need to go very soon. So yeah, but nonetheless, I think we've kind of summarized the key point. I think well, the first two speakers said they never got to the breaking point, but Emeka said they had like two breaking points. So I think that's a very good variety on the discussion itself. I know there are still questions in the audience, so I don't know if we can still keep going or if we have to go. So I would, at this point, I know that Khadija has to go, and I know that Shoaib has to go, if I'm correct. Emeka, I don't know if you still have time to stay on for a
Yeah,
little longer.
I could still spare some minutes. Yeah,
Okay,
say 30
okay,
to
okay,
45 minutes. Yeah.
okay. So this is what we're going to do. Because I want us to take the questions in the audience, but we'll have Emeka to do that. So before Khadija and Shoaib go, let's get some final words from them before we lose them, and then we can try to tackle some of the questions in the audience with Emeka. Does that work for everyone? Yeah, okay,
Sure.
good. So I think we've kind of had a very fruitful discussion. We've talked a little bit about, I think we started off with, what you could have done better yourself, tried to talk about your own side of things. And then we talked a little bit about the relationship with the supervisor and the expectations around that and how that can be managed, from both the supervisor and the student perspective. And then we've talked about, whether there were any major breaking points and dramas around the journey. And I think from the discussion, you can see that it's a very dynamic one. A lot of things to unpack. Maybe we'll have a different session, follow-up session after this to talk about a few other different layers to the conversation. So just in terms of parting words, because I know we need to go very soon. So Khadija and Shoaib, what is if you're going to give advice to someone who wants to start a PhD, maybe fresh out of undergrad, fresh out of a master's, they just want to go into a PhD, in summary, what would your advice be if you just have like 1 minute to give that piece of advice to the person? So we'll start with Khadija.
For me, my advice would be everyone's journey is different. So your supervisee relationship might look different from ours. Your timeline might be different from your friend who started in the exact same day as you. So they could be ahead or they could be behind. Is understanding that this is your journey and it's your PhD and you take ownership for it. So that is no need for comparison because, like one of my panelists said, only you are doing your topic. No one else is doing that topic. No one else is researching what you're researching. So take ownership of your journey and just allow yourself to go through whatever you need to go through to get to the end of it without the comparison or without thinking your journey has to go a certain way or I have this plan or this has to happen by month 10 or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So allow yourself that flexibility. Shoaib, do you want to add to that?
Yes, sure. Khadija has really said it, has nailed it on the head. And I think I really had that experience when I was in my PhD. I started with another colleague under the same supervisor who was doing another topic. and he started publishing like from month 9 something. He started sending his articles out from month 9 into the PhD, although he didn't get anyone accepted until like way into the second year, right? But for me, I I did not plan to publish until my third year. Okay, so you have to own your journey. You have to know what you want out of it, right? And follow your own plan. Of course, that plan has to be agreed with your supervisor, because at the end of the day, I know myself. I know how I work best. I know that if I start publishing early, it's going to affect my thesis writing and all of those things. And I know that publication does not amount to you finishing your PhD. The thesis is what will then end up you finishing your PhD when you submit a thesis that is accepted and all of that, right? So you have to know your journey, own it. Don't compare yourself. I think if you do that, you're going to really do well. Secondly, in terms of relationship between supervisor and supervisee, I think this is more of a Dr. Chooks was saying the other time, and I think I was unpicking what he was saying, is more of a human psychology thing, right? And I saw in the comment section, someone said that, you have to really have an understanding of, and like Dr. Chooks said, you have to understand who you are dealing with, and then try to then fashion how you're going to deal with them with that approach. Okay, because if you don't understand how the person thinks, works, and all of that, and you are bringing your own way of doing things, it might not sync with their own, and there will be conflict. So try to understand that and then meet them at that point, because like Emeka said, they are still part of your journey. There's nothing you can do to that, right? So I have that understanding. And I think lastly, I also saw a comment in here, someone that is seeking advice or something around. Just a moment, please. So Edro mentioned that what if things does not go as planned? Of course, that's life. Life, you set a plan and things will not go as planned. If things does not go as planned, I think the best thing is to then replan yourself. Replan yourself and then continue whatever you need to do to then get yourself uh, to the finish line. It's life. Things will happen. Family issues, work issues, supervisor issue, whatever. I had a very wonderful experience. I found it wonderful during my PhD. I submitted an article, it was accepted, and then after 1 week, it was rejected. Even my supervisor said he has been supervising, PhDs for almost 30 years or more. He has never seen something like that. Right. So things did not go as planned, but what did we do? As far as I did what he needed to do, we re-strategized, sent it to another place, it got accepted, it got published and all of that. So life will happen. Just ensure that you don't lose yourself when all of these things, are happening. And I think you're going to be better off for it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Emeka, we still have you, so I'm not going to hand the mic over to you for last words just yet. Thank you very much, both of you. I think, Shoba, on your last point, I think that's a very important point. Life happens, and PhD does not kind of cut you off the actual things that happen in life. Khadija talked about starting a PhD in a pandemic. That is something that she has no control over. It was something that life just threw her way, and you have to find a way to cope with it. So I think you just need to really understand that you're doing a PhD, but yes, it's still a part of life, and even your supervisor has a life of their own, as well as you too. You have a life of your own, so you need to also think about it. If they have a family issue too, they may not be able to give you the effective attention that you want, and vice versa. So all those things are very important to put into the mix and understand that this is what you're actually dealing with. So I want to thank you both. I don't know if you need to go exactly at this moment, but feel free to drop off exactly when you need to drop off. We'll just continue the conversation by taking questions from the audience.
It was good to see both of you. Khadija is gone and Dr. Shoaib.
Okay, good. So it's just us now. So I will just take the questions that I'm seeing. I think Dr. Shoaib touched on one of them, but let me pull up the next. I think I see about 2 or 3 questions, but let's see how far we can go before you also have to drop off, because I can't answer most of these questions because I've not taken the journey myself. Let's see.
That's okay.
I think this is the first question. What is the most important advice you'd give to someone who just concluded his master's program and graduated with a distinction from a Nigerian university and wants to study PhD abroad? Okay, very specific. Do you want to?
Okay, everything has a process. So first of all, if you are talking about yourself, then congratulations for graduating with a distinction. So PhD works differently, but almost the same. So the process will usually be for you to have an idea, okay, which you will then have to turn into a proposal. And once you have done that into a tiny proposal, you can start looking out for universities where you want to study. Okay, if you want to go to the US, UK, Canada, Australia, you start looking for universities. You can make a list of universities that offer the kind of course in the area of research where you want to do your PhD in. And then you start
Sorry, I
looking
think I
for,
just need. I think there's some context actually. I just saw this comment from the same person, so I think it's a fully funded
okay,
scholarship in US is referring to. If that
yes.
gives any context to your answer.
Okay, yeah. So you start looking for you start looking for supervisors, professors within that department, and you start contacting them, send your proposals and your CV to them. Say, oh, this is what I want to do. This is my proposal. These are my ideas. I would like to work with you. Your work fascinates me in this area. Are you happy to be my supervisor so I can send an application to your university? So you start looking out for this people from their university websites, LinkedIn, checking them out, checking what they are researching on. Okay. So when you finally get one, then they will encourage you to send your application. For the US, yes, most of the PhDs are fully funded. For the UK, it's a little bit different because not all PhDs are fully funded. Some you might have to fund yourself. So that's one. Then secondly, I think what I wanted to say is keeping in mind. Okay, so yes, that's just it. You need to have a proposal, and then you start meeting potential supervisors to say, "Oh, this is what I want to work on. Can you supervise me if I apply to your university?" If they're happy to do so, they will let you know. If they have comments on your work, they will also give you feedback. The other thing I just remembered now is that there are also some advertised PhD positions. Okay, so if you see advertised PhD positions from universities or from established research active professors, you check it out and see if the research objective aligns with what you want to do. There's a lot of research going on in artificial intelligence, energy security, and all of that. So, if that's an area that fascinates you, a lot of universities have some funding already, and they are looking for PhD students to come in and take advantage of that fund and conduct their research in that area. If it is something that fascinates you, then you develop your own idea out of the general research objective and send to them and say, oh, this is what I want to do. My research aligns with what you're doing, with your methodology and everything, and I would love to come and be a part of your PhD research lab. They welcome your application. If you submit one, they'll review it, and if you're a good candidate, they will make you an offer. So yes, these are just the processes to applying for PhDs outside. I think I've done justice to that question.
Yes, yes, I think so. The second question I say is somewhat similar, but this one's asking, what best guide would you give to a student currently undertaking a master's degree in the UK who has aspirations to apply for a PhD? Our first question was from Nigeria or going abroad. This one is now within the UK, so I'm assuming to continue doing a PhD within the UK from that context.
Okay.
Probably similar process, but if there's any key differences, you can just highlight.
Yes. What I would say is PhD is a big thing. It's a very big journey to undertake, especially just coming from a master's. But there is also no better time to start than when you're just coming from a master's, because then you have just finished a research and you're probably uh, research intrigued to want to further that research or do something more intriguing. So while it might be a difficult journey to start, it can also be an exciting path for someone who really wants to do a PhD, either for their career progression or for some personal satisfaction. So, if you are in the UK already doing a master's, your master's is going to be 1 year already. So, the catch is if you're just starting the master's, that's the best time to start looking for the PhD. If you're looking to start immediately after your master's, okay, that's the best time for you to start looking for PhDs. And for you to do that successfully, three things I would recommend. One, within your university, start looking out for PhD positions, funded PhD positions. That is, if you're looking for funded ones, if you think you can fund it, fine and good. But if you can't and you want a funded PhD, start looking for funded PhD positions within your university. And secondly, make sure you deliver a very high quality master's thesis, because then that becomes a standard for determining your suitability for a PhD within that university. If your university cannot be proud to say, oh, he did a very wonderful master's thesis, and I think we can encourage him to take on a PhD, or we are happy to make him an offer to study a PhD with us based on his performance as a master's student. Okay, so, and then thirdly, you can also look away from the UK and look to the US, where you have more funding opportunities, and Canada and all of these other places. But like I said, if your program started in September this year, this is the best time for you to, in fact, most of US applications for PhDs will be closing 1st December, some will be closing in January. So if you're looking to go to the US and you have not started applying now, then you're already late. Then if you're looking to start in the UK, there might still be a little bit of time, because the UK does September start, January start. So you can start now, start looking for supervisors. I got my PhD offer in the very first year of my master's degree. And that was because the university was running ads for that program. And I'm like, oh, they have this program here, let me try and apply. And I applied, and they contacted me, set up a meeting with a supervisor for me, and we met, and they were happy to go on with me. So the best time for you to start looking for is once you start doing your master's. And again, make sure you deliver a high quality work for your master's degree if you're looking within your university or even outside. And lastly, one of the criteria for me being given funding in my university was that I had to have a distinction. They already made me an offer, but they said, before we can give you funding, because you are not our student from the undergraduate, you just did a master. So before you can get the funding, you need to have a distinction. And I was lucky to have delivered the distinction, so I got the funding. So if you're looking for such opportunities, then you have to take your master's studies very serious. And I just remember something. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but it's something that really can help someone out there. If your master's research is very relevant, if your master's research is very relevant, then you might want to continue that research up to your PhD. It all depends on how interesting and innovative the research is. So you can start a master's on a very interesting topic, and you're not able to exhaust it at the master's level. You look at it from another dimension and package it for a PhD application. So it's like a continuation, you know. So it's myself. My area in my master's was conflict, so it was a continuation of what I did. Just that, okay, in the course of this master's, I found out this thing now, so I want to do it at this advanced level. So it can also work that way. It's just about having a broader conceptualization of what you want to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that did a lot of justice to the question. I think I like that last point that you said. If you've started something in your masters and it's very, it's very deep, very relevant, very innovative, you can still carry that forward as a proposed topic to continue into a PhD. I think I know one person that has done something like that from my master's class. So it's also a good route, even if you don't have the advertised positions or any other things. So that is still something, especially if it's something you're already grounded in, that you started, within your masters, and you now want to go a little bit deeper. And if it's a very timely topic as well, Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I don't think I've missed anything else. I think that's everything that we have. So I think that was a very good round of discussion. We exceeded our time, and we had to let some of our speakers go because they had other engagements. But I think we've had a very rich discussion so far today, and I think those listening have also enjoyed the conversation. So I didn't give you the mic the last time to give your own last piece of advice. So I think this is where you get the opportunity to do so. And so I will yield the mic to you. So if you have, someone that's coming into a PhD, I mean, you've just given some people advice from two different situations, but in general now, whether you're coming from undergrad or you're coming from a master's program, you want to, or you're coming even straight from industry, you've had years in industry and you want to now come into a PhD. What's the kind of punchline advice you want to give to the person that you think is going to be most relevant to them at that stage?
Okay. I think the advice will come quite in different directions. So if you're applying for a PhD and you have the title in mind, just try to keep it keep it I'm trying to find the word. Don't bite more than you can chew. That's one. Try to narrow it down. Okay. A lot of people come into doing a PhD with the mindset that, oh, we want to discover Bongo Park. We want to discover this new thing. We want to do this huge. Yes, it's supposed to be novel, but don't bite too much. Don't carry too much that will drag you back or that will delay you. Finishing the PhD is more important than starting it, because a lot of people can start, but not a lot of people finish. Like I just gave you a statistics, only 11% in Canada of Canadians finish PhD when they started. So start something that you can finish. Make sure it is in a very relevant area. Make sure, even if it is not, make sure you make it relevant. Make sure you make your PhD research relevant. There is a lot of ways to tie relevance in your PhD now. You have energy security questions, you have conflict all over the world, so you have healthcare challenges, you have artificial intelligence. Don't just do something that will not be relevant in the modern world. Whatever aspect you're looking at your research from, try to make it relevant to solve problem. That way, you will continue to be relevant in that part. And lastly, the PhD journey, like my colleagues have said, is your journey. You have to define it. Don't compare your successes. Have your own metrics for measuring what success is. For me, they were nice. I would say, okay, today or this week, I just want to write a paragraph, just a paragraph. And I read all the books I think I can just to write one paragraph. And once I am able to write that paragraph, I'm happy. I'm satisfied. Okay. Whether my supervisor is going to come back to me and say, oh, this is, I will at least know that he will read it with some level of, okay, I've given him something to ponder over. So know what success looks like and have your own metrics of measuring it. Don't just compare yourself, compare your journey to, oh, this person is publishing, this person is doing this and that. And then let me use this opportunity to speak a little bit about conferences and publications. There is an untapped resources that a lot of PhD students don't take advantage of in conferences and publications. Yes, don't hurry to publish. Very important. Don't be in a haste to send your work for. But again, also be in a haste to send it. When you think you have done something, this thing very huge, one of the ways to get it tested is to go to conferences. Okay, when you go to conferences, you have the opportunity to present your work to a larger audience who will then see it and critique your work for you. And by critiquing your work, what they are doing is offering you an extra supervision, which your supervisory team at the university, okay, beyond your supervisory team at the university. So you have in a room of over, let's say, 30 to 40 persons sitting and listening to what you've done. So beyond what your supervisor has given you during your supervision meetings, you now have the benefit of having over 40 persons or less comment on your work. For me, that's a huge resources that you can take on board. So when they comment on your work, don't go arguing. The ones you can clarify, but take on board as much comments as you can, because it then shapes your research and gives you the different perspectives that you ordinarily wouldn't get from your supervisory team. The same thing with sending your work to high quality journals. When you send your work out that way, it might take time. Your supervisor will even finish going through it, come back to you. Sometimes they can take 4 months to get back to you on a review that you've sent to a journal. So, but when they do come back to you, they are going to come back to you with a lot of comments. Either that this paper is good, we accept it, or this paper is publishable, but these are the areas we want you to improve on. That way, you get extra hand, you get extra support that you're not paying for. That's a good thing. You might pay for the conferences, but to get the reviews from those top tier journals, you're not paying for it, because once you submit, they send it out to reviewers, and those reviewers will do a thorough job because it's a top tier journal. They will do a thorough job reviewing the work. And by the time they are done reviewing the work, it comes back to you. You now see that, okay, this job is good though. It means I'm doing something. It's a way of encouraging you too. Or it comes back with a lot of comments on things you need to improve on. And by the time you take all those ideas on board and appear before your supervisor will now marvel, oh, how come? How did you come about all of these things? So it's a way for you to shine before your supervisor when you take the pains of those very, very tough reviews from the journals. So you have to maximize these platforms of publishing and conferences, but don't just send your publications to predatory journals, because they will munch on it and you will not get a good value for it. So this will be my last word to our audience, and I would say thank you very much for your very good questions, and to the moderator, thank you for your time. And the Giro, thanks for inviting me.
Okay. Thank you. I think I really appreciate the last point, those hidden gems that you kind of dished out to, make people to understand the value of, those publications. And because some people may see it as a chore, or they said I have to attend 2 conferences, so I just have to attend 2 conferences, or they said I need to publish 3 papers, I just need to publish 3 papers. But there's actual value in doing those things, which is the reason why you're encouraged to do them. And I think you've done a good job in kind of spotlighting where that value comes from, and how students can maximize those kind of things to get better outcome, and also improve themselves, because it's all about capacity building. You build your capacity when you do some of these things. Good. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end of today's session. I don't have much else to say. I just want to thank everyone that participated, all those people that gave their comments, and also sent in their questions. I think that formed a very good part of the discussion. I want to thank all the speakers, including those that have dropped off, because I know we had like a 1-hour time, but we had to pull through. I'm not going to say it's poor time management. I just think it's because we had a lot of content to digest and to give out, which is also very good. So I think it's also good value, especially for those who are going to come back to the recording later on. So yeah, so even if you couldn't stay to the end of the webinar, you can still always access the recording on YouTube and follow up from there. We might have other sessions like this in the future. We'll try to see, especially if you give us any feedback that says, this is something that you really want. So we'll try to do it, especially, maybe if there's any students or even supervisors that find sessions like this really helpful. It's good to sit down and talk and reflect about things that you've gone through, and also try to get some lessons learned out of it. I also need to say that we have another session coming up tomorrow, but this is for the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, which is currently ongoing. So we're going to have a session tomorrow, same time, same platform, to talk to applicants that are currently on the trail, try to simplify some of the processes and answer a lot of questions. I get a few questions. Commonwealth Shared Scholarship is closing on the 9th of December, so the date is fast approaching and people are beginning to run around the place. So
did you say Shared is closing on the 9th?
Yes.
Oh, that's close.
Yeah, it was a very small window this time around. I think it was 3 weeks. They gave a 3-week application window, so very close. So
yeah, because the applications are always overwhelming.
Yeah. So just for people, so if you're listening to this and you're hearing it for the first time, or you're struggling with the application, come tomorrow. I won't be here, but we have a different host and a different panel that's going to talk about it with a few other past Commonwealth Shared scholars that are going to give you a lot of value. We've done previous webinars before. We have some ones that are also coming up in the future. We'll try to organize a few sessions over the next few weeks to get a few topics in before the year ends and everyone has to go and wind down for Christmas. We talked a little bit about burnout when we're talking about things, so sometimes you just need to unplug. I think the end of the year is a good time for everyone to unplug. So both the mentors, our moderator, myself, Ejiro that's facilitating all these things, and those of you that are applying. So a lot of things don't happen over that period. It's good for people to unplug. So we're trying to see if we can give out information to people so that they can make good use of the rest of the year and start the new year strong. So I'll just
Yeah, I
say,
want to shout out to my Commonwealth shared mentee. I shared the link with him, and I think he's here too. So it's good to see you. Thanks for making it to this webinar, and to Ebube Chukutu and Daisy. If you guys joined eventually, it's good to see all of you. Thanks for coming around.
okay, good. Good to know our audience is expanding. You're all welcome. Share the invites to everyone else, let them also come and benefit from the value that you get as well.
Okay.
So that's why I call it the end of the day. You're all very welcome. Thank you for joining us. And like I said, you'd catch us again on the next episode of Let's Talk Scholarships as we go through the next few topics over the next few weeks. Stay tuned to this channel, and the recordings will always be there if you cannot attend any of our live sessions. We have a few interesting sessions that are out of our normal thing coming up. So just watch this space, and we'll see you when we see you. But for now, say we're signing off, and we'll say goodbye and good night, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and you too, and have a lovely night.
Right.